So, of course, I feel like everybody kind of knows with perimenopause and menopause, the key things that are going on is that you get a decrease in estrogen. You also get a decrease in progesterone and testosterone as well. But the estrogen really impacts the skin in many different ways.
Welcome to the Advanced Women's Health Podcast, where we empower women with the latest insights and advice on holistic health. From cutting-edge medical research to practical wellness tips, our mission is to help you thrive at every stage of life. Join us as we explore topics ranging from hormonal balance and reproductive health to nutrition and mental well-being. Whether you're seeking solutions for a specific health concern or simply want to enhance your overall wellness, you're in the right place. Let's embark on this journey to better health together. This is the Advanced Women's Health Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I am so excited to dive into today's episode with Dr. Dasha on our BC team and Dr. Rebecca on our Ontario team. These are our resident skin lovers, and so we will oftentimes bring in specific topics related to skin because you guys love a good topic related to skin, and just dive a little bit deeper. So we are going to be doing a series just on perimenopausal skin. It's a question we get asked so much. And so we're going to kick it off with Dr. Dasha and Dr. Rebecca. So why don't we get started with just a little bit of an overview of perimenopause and how that can start to show up on your skin? I think it's something my friends ask me about a lot. My patients ask me about sometimes. But there's a lot of signs and symptoms and things happening underneath that people have questions about. So why don't we start there?
For sure. So, of course, I feel like everybody kind of knows with perimenopause and menopause, the key things that are going on is that you get a decrease in estrogen. You also get a decrease in progesterone and testosterone as well. But the estrogen really impacts the skin in many different ways. So, first and foremost, you start to get a decrease in collagen. And collagen is that structural protein that kind of makes up the elasticity and structure of the skin. Your loss of collagen actually starts at about 25, and they say that, within the first 5 years of perimenopause or so, you actually lose 35% more. So that's a very significant part.
I'm already depressed.
I know, I'm worried. I don't want to make this depressed at all.
Let's start on a happy note.
Don't worry. Don't worry. The other thing that takes a big hit is your skin barrier. So you also start to produce less oil, less hyaluronic acid, less ceramides. Those are all the natural moisturizing factors of your skin. And, I feel like I talk about the skin barrier so much, but essentially when you sort of lose that integrity to the skin barrier, two things become an issue. One, you lose water from the skin very easily, so you get dry skin. And the other thing is that you sort of have this, like you lack a protective barrier, which means that, you're more sensitive to inflammatory triggers in the environment, essentially. So you kind of have this dry and more sensitive skin as a result. The other thing is that you start to lose your skin cell turnover. So the skin works, you have your most new baby skin cells at the very bottom. And as time goes on, they sort of move to the surface and die off. And this is a natural process. Usually it takes about like a month or 2 months when you're nice and young. And as you start to get older, this process slows down. So what that means is that if you have pigment in the skin, it doesn't come out as quickly. If you, kind of have a textured or thick surface to the skin, it doesn't like exfoliate itself in the same way, if that makes sense. And then on top of that, you also have fat pad loss. So you kind of lose the structural integrity. You also have bone loss and bone resorption. And you also have muscle changes as well. You can have muscle laxity, so like drooping of muscles in certain areas. And you can also have like muscle tightening where you kind of get like wrinkles from that as well. I think that pretty much covers the physiology, which is quite a lot. Do you have anything to add to that, Dasha?
I mean, yeah, you did a really great job summarizing all of the wonderful things that happen to us as we get older. I mean, it's the burden we have to bear. But yeah, we get this really big loss of collagen. And on top of that, when we're in that perimenopausal transition, there's all these other things happening to us at the same time. And, with our hormones going through this disappearing and reappearing act, we get things like hot flashes as well, trouble sleeping, changes to weight, metabolic changes. And when that happens too, we get really frustrated. So stress goes up, so that impacts our skin. And then when we're not sleeping enough, that also impacts our skin. So it's like all of these little things kind of piling on to each other, and people get discouraged, and sometimes when we're discouraged we don't make the best choices, right? And that really does come out on our skin. And at the same time, we also have to, we were talking a little bit about this before, but when we look at like social media and that influence as well, people expect women to look a certain way, and there's a societal standard, and that can be a big kind of depressant as well. So just another thing that can also affect our skin with that increased stress and all of that on top of it.
Totally. And I think one of the things that I always like to reinforce to people is that there is aging gracefully, right? Which is a conversation that no one wants to have anymore. I was told the other day I shouldn't say that. I'm like, fine, whatever. But in any situation, there's aging that is always going to happen, and then there's accelerated aging. There are factors that make us feel like things are moving in the wrong direction quickly. So when it comes to perimenopause, and when it comes to how things are shifting with perimenopause, can you give a rundown about like what's normal, quote unquote, versus what's optional and like a sign of something that we should work on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start off by giving a few examples, but definitely things like wrinkles, saggier skin, that's all normal. It happens as we age with that loss of collagen, the loss of fat pads, things like that. With our muscles moving, we get wrinkles as well. What's normal but also can be prevented is sun damage on the skin. So that's that premature aging. This can obviously kind of be mitigated with SPF use. So I really love mineral sunscreens and wearing a hat when you go outside, things like that if you're on vacation. So I would say those are kind of the big things that are normal. One of them, which we don't like, the wrinkles, but one of them that's not necessarily normal, which is that damage from the skin. And also oxidative stress can really show up in our skin as well.
What's that?
Oxidative stress is essentially, it can occur from the environment, it can occur from stress, it can occur when there's dysregulations in our body, like high levels of insulin, things like that. So anything that causes what we call this oxidative stress to our cells. So it's like, you know, mitochondrial dysfunction.
When the cells begin to rust, yeah, oxidative stress. I bug the team right all the time. You guys can tell that's why they're laughing, but it's this rusting process that happens where the body is essentially exposed to things prematurely in doses that we are not expecting. That means that our cells break down, right? There's a higher breakdown cycle, there's just more damage, there is just fragility, right? Things can not function the way we want them to, energy is not produced the way we want it to, all that kind of stuff. So then why does fat leave my face and go to my abdomen? Ladies, let's talk about that fact. This whole like fat pad loss in your face and your feet, have you heard that? The ball of your, or like the heel of your foot, you lose fat in your foot so that it can go to your effing abdomen. It is rude, and optional. But let's talk about some of those like metabolic features and things that are changing and how they affect skin.
I would say metabolically, we definitely have a higher tendency towards insulin resistance for sure. And as we all know, insulin resistance is not ideal for any part of the body and specifically the skin. Increases in blood sugar and insulin, well, you can actually glycosylate your skin cells. So they're actually quite sensitive. And that essentially means you have like deposition of sugar molecules to the skin cells, which, as you can only imagine, is not ideal for sure. You also have this
So you're
increase.
kind of like one of those. For anyone who is perimenopausal right now, you know when we used to dip those wooden sticks into the sugar solution and pray like hell that it collected so that you would be able to eat it a week later? First and foremost, how disgusting. Bacteria replicate in sugar. But the rock candy trend, that's essentially your skin. You're just like rock candy
Can
skin
you
when we
imagine?
collect sugar on it.
For sure. And then from an insulin resistance perspective, we have more incidence of insulin at the liver. When the liver is not optimized, metabolizing out, toxins and all those kinds of things, obviously the skin takes a hit from that. You have just a generalized increase in inflammation, which again, skin doesn't like inflammation for sure. Inflammation impacts oxidative stress, reduces mitochondrial function, and there you go again with all the loops. Nutrient deficiencies are a huge thing. Sleep, all of Dasha mentioned already before, sleep, stress, all of those things go up as well, and we know that impacts skin.
So, how does sleep and stress impact your skin?
Good question. So I would say from a sleep perspective, I think we've kind of lost the importance of sleep in our modern day culture. Sleep is the time when, your body regenerates, nourishes itself, sort of like resets. The skin needs as much of that as it can possibly get, as well as the rest of your body, for sure. Then stress, we know cortisol, the stress hormone, that also directly impacts skin health as well.
One thing that we didn't mention, but I think is really important to mention, is also how things like alcohol can affect our skin. Obviously, if you want to have a glass of wine, sometimes have a glass of wine.
This close to
Well,
bringing wine to this podcast. This is the end of my day, and I was this close. I was like, do I do it?
yeah. I mean, everything in moderation, right? But you probably have noticed like either a night where you didn't get enough sleep or a night where you had a little too much wine. You wake up and your skin is dry, bags under your eyes, and you're just like, wow, what what is this? How did this impact my skin so quickly? So we can see even like after one night of bad sleep, one night of drinking too much, that can really impact our skin. Imagine what, chronic sleep deprivation, that the impact that has. And also, when we don't sleep, as I mentioned before, we don't make great choices with our diet. We're more likely to consume things that are, higher in sugar, not so great for us, things that are quick and make us feel good in that moment. But at the end of the day, if you're already insulin resistant and you are consuming foods like that and not sleeping and not taking care of yourself, then that's going to compound even more and then have this huge effect on your skin.
And we'll do an episode specifically on like insomnia because I do think it's a big thing. Like I can hear people yelling into their phones like I can't sleep. So we will definitely address that in a big way because I do think that's a big thing. But let's dive a little bit more. So from what I'm hearing, actually, I'll summarize. Estrogen and the fluctuations in estrogen are creating this situation where we can have pigmentation changes, we can have blood sugar changes, we can have more inflammation in the skin. Plus, all of those pigmentation changes, the sun damage for those of us who do not wear sunscreen as much as we should, is taking longer and longer to go away. So we don't have that rebound, we don't have that resilience. We are losing collagen, we're losing fat the first time people are upset about that fact. And then that's resulting in a lot of these skin changes. Did I summarize that?
Well said.
Yeah. And then our moisture barrier, of
Don't
course.
forget the skin barrier.
Don't forget the
My
barrier.
favorite topic.
So navigating through that. Obviously, we talked about some things are optional, some things are not. Do we expect, like, what are we doing? What's our role? What's your role? I say we, your role in all of this. How do you guys like to address this when someone comes in the room and they're expressing these concerns about their skin and about the changes that they're seeing? And how are you navigating forward within that?
I guess I will start. So, first and foremost, obviously, like supplements and topicals and all those kinds of things are great, but it does come back sort of to the pillars of health that we talked about already. So, do you have any nutrient deficiencies? Are you insulin resistant? Is there inflammation, gut health, liver health, mitochondria, stress, all those kinds of things? Obviously, optimizing those things are key. Then, if you want to be, it depends how extra you want to go from a supplement and topical regimen. But I kind of have some, typical supplement recommendations. So I always recommend a collagen with hyaluronic acid in it. The evidence now on collagen is there. There's meta-analyses. We know that it works. We don't exactly understand how it gets to where it has to go, but it does. ACEs plus zinc, so vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, and zinc, those are all very important cofactors for making collagen and hyaluronic acid. And there's also antioxidants, which is going to reduce that oxidative stress burden. I always recommend some sort of omega-3, again, for that skin barrier function. We know you lose that capacity somewhat to produce oil, so making sure you're getting in enough healthy fats in the diet is very important. And then I usually supplement with an omega-3. I actually like krill oil because it also has astaxanthin in it, and then you get extra antioxidants in there. So you want to try to get as much antioxidants as you can for that oxidative stress piece. And then making sure you're
What are
getting
examples of antioxidants? I'm going to pause you there. Because again, I think we throw this word around all the time.
through.
Antioxidants. So run that for me. What are those antioxidants? Where can we get them in food? Where do we get them in supplements? Like, what does that look like?
So the way I like to describe antioxidants to patients is basically bright colored fruits and veggies, essentially. That pigment you get in bright colored fruits and veggies are antioxidants. There's lots of different types of antioxidants in terms of the colors. We love polyphenols, the red, blue, and purple. So
We go back to wine. We got
wine.
back
I
there.
wasn't. I
Highly
didn't
colorful.
bring
No,
up the wine, okay?
you can tell it's been a long week.
About there for sure. And then from a sort of supplement and dietary perspective, there's so many different antioxidants: vitamin C, vitamin E, resveratrol, CoQ10, melatonin is an antioxidant to a certain degree. So there's lots of different ways to get antioxidants in for sure. And then the other supplement that I make sure to go in with is vitamin B3. So there's new evidence now to show that B3 can improve wrinkles, skin barrier, that kind of thing. And if you're going to be taking a B3, you might as well take it in a B complex.
That's niacin, right?
Yeah, niacin.
Is it just because the blood flow?
So it improves metabolism, and I can't remember the specific mechanism of action. I would
Like
like that one.
cellular metabolism?
Yeah, so it improves metabolism as a whole, and I'm pretty sure that's why it has that implication on the skin. But the studies show improvements in wrinkles and improvements in skin barrier function, and I believe that's a product of its impact on metabolism. But I'll look into
Oh,
the proper
interesting.
details of that and get back to you.
No, it's super interesting. So when I went to school, like way back in the day, we had to do a hydrotherapy course. And within the hydrotherapy course, we had to take, can't remember, I think it was like 200 or 300 milligrams of niacin, and then go into like a hot like sauna, and then go into do cold water treading. And it was a way to improve circulation.
Interesting.
So just a heads up for everyone, niacin definitely brings circulation to your skin at high dosing. It can make things feel hot and tingly there for a minute. So that's what I was wondering.
The niacin flush, so I'm sure that circulatory component has a huge part too in the skin. Those are usually
Okay.
my top supplements, and then it depends how extra people want to go.
And I think that's an important thing within that is like you can hear how all of that relates back to the general skin barrier. If you have excessive amounts of estrogen being produced, right? Which we all kind of do in perimenopause at certain points. If you have insulin resistance, if you have dysbiosis, like if you have all these things, you're going to have to correct those individually. So it's something I actually got a question on social the other day coming out of one of the podcasts is one of the girls was like, "Oh, I see one of the clinicians um at your clinics, but I wasn't recommended all of these supplements. Should I start taking them?" And I was like, "No, that's not what we're saying. You have to start with like where you're at, right?" So I always say you can absolutely go put new windows in your house. They're beautiful, expensive, waste of time, right? You got to fix the foundation. If the windows are breaking because the foundation is cracked, like you got to fix that foundation. So it was a really good reminder for me to introduce those things. It's like these are things that are generally have research and evidence behind them that are helpful, but you might not get there in your first visit. You might not get there in your third visit. Like you might end up on a maintenance system further into the future, right?
Yeah, everything that you said, Rebecca, was awesome. I definitely agree with the focusing on the on the pillars of health and things like that. Those are all super important. And then with the astaxanthin, it's awesome that you mentioned that because there's actually research going into astaxanthin saying that it can actually help decrease sun damage in combination with sunscreen, of course. But yeah, so that is really cool. That's something I definitely also recommend. In what I usually do for that is pretty much all the same thing that Rebecca does as well. I
Good.
also do a lot of injectable treatments. So I do things like Botox. I do platelet-rich plasma therapy. For those of you who do not know what that is, it's also what we know as the vampire facial, where we take your blood, spin it down, get all the platelets and the good stuff out, and then inject it back into areas of concern. But again, that's also not for everyone. And with PRP, the way that I like to describe it is that it helps your own body kind of increase collagen production. And it has this mild inflammatory response at first and tells the body, like, hey, come heal me. And we also microneedle on top of that, which is also called collagen induction therapy. So those are all great, great things.
And then when we get into, we'll talk about like those ones a little bit more in the future because that's honestly such a huge topic. But when we get into prescriptions and hormones and like where does that come into the mix?
Yeah, I mean, if someone is a good candidate for hormones, like we always use bioidentical, so estradiol and then oral micronized progesterone. If someone's a good candidate for it and they're experiencing things like hot flashes, insomnia, anxiety, even MSK problems like frozen shoulder, joint pain, things like that, it really changes their quality of life when we initiate hormone replacement therapy because it can make people, number one, make better choices because they're not feeling like not so great. And it can also help people identify, like, feel normal again because sometimes we really turn it back onto ourselves and say, why am I acting this way? I don't know why. I understand why this is going on. Well, it is you, but it's also not you too. This is just something that we have to deal with, and I think it's incredible that we have ways to manage that too, right? A lot of the time, even like topical estradiol is now used off label to apply to the skin, right?
That's what I was gonna ask. I'm
Yeah.
like, are we putting estradiol on my face?
I
Oh,
mean,
how is that working? What is happening?
yeah, so it's definitely an off label use, but yeah, it can help increase collagen, help increase elasticity in the skin again. Definitely not going to help with the fat pad situation. But yeah, that is kind of how we use that part of it.
Is there any research on microneedling with estradiol? I was asking Steph Macagon this. Steph is an acupuncturist in Ontario, and she does a lot of cosmetic and microneedling. And I was like, is there any research on this? And she didn't know.
I don't know either. I
I
think
feel like there
the
should be. Like, let's do the trial, everyone. Like,
Yeah, I honestly think if you have a good delivery system topically, then it should go where it needs to go, right? That's the reason a lot of the times when we're microneedling with a certain product, like an active ingredient like exosomes and PRP, we're trying to drive the product further into our skin. If we have a good medium where it's compounded and people can put it on and it can absorb well, then that's really good. However, because it's being used off label, we're typically using like vaginal estradiol cream and putting it on our face. So, yeah,
yeah.
that's one thing to consider there. So, probably not a lot of research into it because it's kind of just starting to get a little bit more popular to use. I don't even know how much it's being used in Canada, but I know it's being
Yeah.
used a lot in the States. I've heard a lot of dermatologists talk about that.
Yeah, there's a couple companies that I know are advertising it pretty hard here. And there are a couple of research studies on it. But what is an exosome?
Yeah, exosomes.
So
Exosomes.
technology behind skin will forever fascinate me.
Okay, yeah. So exosomes are now becoming really popular in skincare and any dermatological applications, and they help cells talk to each other, right? So they help, I know that's a bit of a weird way to describe it, but think of them as tiny bubble like packages that are released by nearly every type of cell in their body. So we can use particular exosomes to try to deliver a certain signal, right? So for the skin, topically, we can use them to help stimulate collagen production. They can help in wound healing. They can even decrease inflammation. in short, they're like little instructions to skin cells.
Did you
Like
buy them?
signal molecules.
You just like
So
buy a vial of this shit on the
they
black
are
market?
incredibly expensive. Yeah, they are very incredibly expensive. I know there's a couple aesthetics clinics here in Vancouver that you can do microneedling with this with exosomes. You can buy exosome creams, but they have a big price point on them.
Why would you do that? Like, I'm not saying that in a negative way. If you want to exosome your face, everyone, but like, what is the added benefit that you get? I feel like our North American society is just like, let's find a way to make something sexier. It's like everything is like liposomal now. You need like liposomal berberine. You don't need
Yeah.
liposomal berberine. Just like put it in your mouth. You know what I mean? Anyways, so tell me more. Tell me more.
Why are people doing this? Well, it has really great results, and I think you would get better collagen stimulation with that, better elasticity in the skin, and yeah, better stimulation as opposed to just like microneedling with just hyaluronic acid. But
Yeah,
PRP is
like
still my favorite.
you're sort of like signaling the fibroblasts to produce more collagen kind of thing. Like you're
Totally.
inducing chemical signals to induce cellular functions or roles or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
What's PRF versus PRP? I'm
PRP is
just gonna start
platelet.
asking questions. You guys
Yeah.
have an agenda now, but like I have to keep up with all of y'all asses and be looking young and youthful into my old age. So tell me more. What's PRF versus PRP?
Yeah, PRP is platelet rich plasma. And basically, the biggest difference for that is in platelet rich plasma, we use an anticoagulant. And with PRF, it's platelet rich
It's like
fibrin.
fibrin or something. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's platelet rich fibrin. And basically, what it does is it forms kind of like you can make it into a gel and mix it with like hyaluronic acid to make like a filler type thing. But basically, what it does is it causes the growth factors to release slower. So a lot of times, if someone is doing like, under eye PRP or PRF, they might notice fullness longer under their eyes if they're using PRF, just because it's a bit of a thicker medium. And it's like there's
That
more
makes sense.
cross linking in that regard. Things are released slower. But to be honest,
Nicola loves a filler, so that makes sense that she likes that one. No, I'm joking. Nicola's gonna listen to this and be like, I was here. Leave me out of that.
that is funny. But yeah, I've seen really great results with both. But I mainly focus on PRP because I find that that one requires a lot less downtime. And then with PRF, people are usually looking kind of crazy for a couple days.
Today's episode is brought to you by none other than Advanced Women's Health. If you are interested in diving in deeper to your health, if you are finally ready to feel like yourself, and you are finally over hearing everything's normal, everything's fine, and you want a deeper dive into your healthcare, then we are here to help you. We are currently helping patients in British Columbia and Ontario, Canada. But don't worry, if you're in another province, still reach out, get added to the wait list as we expand coast to coast. We cannot wait to work with you. Check out the show notes for more information on how to get started.
So then we talked a lot about like preventative things.
Yeah.
Okay. You can preventatively put on sunscreen. You can preventatively take collagen and hyaluronic acid or reactively. But if your skin is already sagging, are there options? And I think this is a really important conversation to have because I see online and everywhere, and this is going to be a conversation we're having a lot more over the next little while, that like we expect miracles. You know what I mean? Your your skin has already thinned, the fat is gone. You know what I mean? It's already sagging. That can be a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? Like yes, I understand that society wants everyone to have like their boobs up at their chin, large and full, fresh face, and a teeny waist and a bumpin' ass. Like this is what we see on social that is obviously surgically created. Let's be honest. So outside of that and outside of surgery, and if you want all of those things, rock on with your bad self. I just learned what a BBL was like a year ago. Sash told me. But within that, if you're interested in that and that's what you love, and I love that for you, this is not a judgment conversation, but I do think it's really important to understand what you're putting your money and your hope into, because there's so many patients I have in my office, so many friends I have in my life that go in for a procedure and they expect something that they don't get. And then they are like almost grieving that and their youth and all these things at the same time. And it's a lot. It's a lot to be a woman. I know I make jokes, but that's who I am as a person. It's a lot. And so, can we just talk a little bit about, yes, we can act proactively, we can deal with our insulin, we can do all those things, but what does it really mean to approach this from a treatment perspective as opposed to a prevention perspective?
Yeah, I mean, Rebecca and I were talking about this a little bit last week, and I think the thing that we both do kind of initially is before we even talk about treatments, we also like to talk about setting expectations, right? And figuring out, you know, why are you looking to get this kind of treatment? If you're looking to get this kind of treatment to make yourself feel a little bit better in your skin, you don't have much else going on in the way of like mental health issues, you're not trying to fill some gap, that is great. With that being said, we also can't make you look like you're, 20 years old again, right? We can't wave a magic wand and do that. So we can definitely work with this beautiful canvas that we have. But, you know, at the end of the day, we can't be looking for something outside of ourselves to make us feel good on the inside, right? And if that's why you're looking to make your skin look better and, change the way you look, that is not a good, not that we're changing the way people look, but if that's what you're looking for, that is not a good reason to get cosmetic treatments, right? So that's an important conversation to have, especially if we're doing things like Botox and filler and all of that, right? So yeah, setting expectations is going to be a big important one. Any thoughts on that, Rebecca?
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, supplements and topicals and treatments and all those things are great, but it does, come back down to the pillars of health, because pillars of health mean, optimizing your body. And when you optimize your body, you optimize your mind. And, the purpose of life is just being happy. And that means being happy in your own skin, right? So I always bring it back to the pillars of health. Those are kind of the sustainable ways to improve not just your skin, but like your self in general.
Yeah, totally. And then other things we can talk about doing topically when we're at this point is like, okay, I do want to stimulate collagen production and I want to improve skin elasticity, but I don't necessarily want to get Botox or want to get all these things. We can do something like retinols, which are great. If you don't want to, if you want to do a prescription one, tretinoin is a great option. If you're wanting to do like a over-the-counter, more herbal one, you can also use bakuchiol, which is great for sensitive skin. I know Rebecca loves bakuchiol.
That's the only word I knew out of skincare coming in, which is why the girls are laughing. I'm like, we can talk about Bakuchiol.
Yeah. But yeah, those are things we can do. And then, as Rebecca said, just maintaining that skin barrier, right? And at the end of the day, I think Sarah and I talked about this in the last podcast about acne, but we don't have to have like this crazy 20-step routine where you have a $200 cleanser and a $200 moisturizer. You don't have to have all of that. Just make sure you have the basics and you're being consistent with it. And you're using a retinol and a sunscreen. Those are kind of my favorites. And, at the end of the day, like if you're using those consistently, they will work. Yeah, that's my little soapbox. I'll step off for now.
No, I do think it's an important conversation because even have you seen that, like, is it a CO2 laser, the thing that like zaps your skin and then
The
everything tightens
Fraxel?
up?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get sent these things all the time, right? And I'm like, looks pretty good to me, that, right? But I think that there is like a huge market for making people feel useful and like whatever that means to you. And again, I have admitted very openly, I have thousands of dollars probably in topicals because like I just find it fun. You know what I mean? It's fun for me to try out different things, to try out different facials. I love microcurrent. Like I am obsessed with microcurrent. I love a hydrofacial. You know what I mean? Like I am probably going to get you to fill my face full of PRP when I'm in Vancouver. You're right. Like I'm down to try all of these things, but I think you're right. Like it comes from a place for me of like one of my philosophies in life, many people know, is F around and find out. I'm not coming for a miracle. I'm just like, yeah, let's see happens. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, let's just play around. Let's see. Let's have fun with it. And always like from this place of growth and like maximizing my potential, just like I do with my supplements, just like I do with, I'm not trying to exceed my potential. I'm trying to maximize my potential. And I think those are the conversations I love having with people, is just coming from this place of I'm good, and let's see what happens if I zap my face, right? Like it's totally fine to want to play with those things and to want to try those things out. And that's like, that is human nature. That is human evolution, to want to push the boundaries a little bit on things and see what we're capable of. It's really just like we've all seen cosmetic stuff gone wrong, right? Where they're like 24 procedures in, and like it's very clear there's something else going on there. And I think that's really, that's one of the things I see, we're in this like division within in society right now, where there's a whole bunch of 20-year-olds getting like preventative Botox. F that. It's not a thing. Anyways, well, we should talk about that. And then the like the people being like, no, you know what, I want to rock through this and maximize my potential and feel good, but like in my body the way I want it. And the spectrum is good. Like we're here for all of it, right?
Well said.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we're not going to leave before we talk about this preventative Botox piece. So I have questions. If you paralyze a muscle on a continuous basis, does it not lose integrity? Like this preventative Botox thing, I question, because I'm like, are these people when they're 40 gonna have their eyebrows drooping down? You know what I mean? Because that muscle, like if I don't use my arm, I lose strength, I lose elasticity, capacity. Is that not a thing? Should we not be worried about that? I don't know anything about Botox, so this is me asking, but
Yeah, so I'll answer from my lens, and then Rebecca, you can give your thoughts. But I do preventative Botox on my patients as well, patients that are young. And again, like it's not like I'm recommending it being like, oh, you should do some preventative Botox. I want to get wrinkles later on. But these
but
are
you need to own
people
your
coming,
shit. Yeah, like I
yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah. These are patients coming in. They're saying, I don't like the way that I'm getting 11s here, or I'm getting a few forehead creases, and I kind of want to address that. Again, the way that I approach Botox is I don't want to make you look crazy. I don't want you to not be able to move your face at all. But if we're looking to relax a little bit, we're happy to do that, right? And we'll think about it in the forehead at first, for example, right? If you completely freeze this, yes, you will get some heaviness there. But if you do it in a more gentle way, you're still going to be able to move here. You're just not going to be able to necessarily make those same expressions that cause deep set wrinkles, right?
Is
And
that why you
then
can still move your forehead?
yes. Anyways, but yeah, it's true that muscle can lose bulk if we do it over and over again. And we'll use the example of the masseter here, right? So people often get jaw slimming Botox because their masseter is bulky. Here, we inject a high amount of Botox in order to slim down that muscle, right? And then, Sarah, you're funny.
No
Um,
idea this is a thing. I'm learning so much,
yeah,
guys.
we can see here that
Why
it
would you do
does,
that?
because some people, they have like a bulging masseter. Some people also do it for jaw pain and clutching
Yeah,
and
I knew
things like
about the
that.
pain. Yeah.
Yeah, so that is like an added bonus there. But yeah, all dose dependent. And if you start younger, what's also going to happen is your body might actually develop antibodies to Botox, and you might metabolize it a lot faster too. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And I know there are different types of so Botox is just a brand name. They're all like botulinum toxin neuromodulators, right? And we've heard about things that are more cleaner, like Xeomin. and those ones are supposed to have a reduced risk of developing antibodies, but it also doesn't work as well as things like Botox and Dysport and other neuromodulators, in my opinion. But yes,
There
so
we go.
long story short, yes, it does. It can cause that muscle to not move a lot. It can reduce in bulk. I wouldn't say like it absolutely atrophies the muscle unless you're doing like a giant dosage. But no
Yeah.
one is ever going to put that much in a forehead. You know what I mean? And in patients that I've seen, like, getting Botox since they were like 30, they still do have really great skin. But I agree, you shouldn't start super young, and it should only be like if it's necessary cosmetically, if it's like something that's actually bothering you. If someone comes and they have like a smooth forehead, they're like, I want to get preventative Botox, and they don't have a single line, even when they move, I'm going to be like, no, you shouldn't do this. It's just throwing money
We
away.
all know who does that on our team. We will not mention their names, but
I don't
we all
know.
know.
I don't know either. We'll
I'll
talk
tell
about
you
this
guys what,
after.
we're going to call them out.
We'll
I
go-
promise you they're listening on the back end giggling about it because I razz them all the time. But that's why I'm waiting until I'm older so I don't get antibodies against my Botox. Because yeah, like I have a lot of facial expressions, everyone. I'm going to have a face full of wrinkles.
With that being said, though, you shouldn't, like, if you're going to get Botox, you shouldn't start too late, right? Because if you have really deep set lines that are there even when you're not moving, like, Botox really isn't going to do much for that.
So then what do
Uh,
you do in those situations?
I mean,
Like, what if I decide to wait and I have like crazy forehead wrinkles from all of you guys?
yeah, I mean, we
Each
could
one of
try to do
you,
things
one
with
of these belongs to every person on the team.
that.
You better stop hiring. Uh-oh.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, definitely retinols can be helpful, but again, nothing is gonna do what like Botox does in terms of reducing that wrinkle. But yeah. And then there's also something to note, if someone's like over 65, there's not a lot of like, it's technically not on label to do Botox on them because there's not a lot of research in that regard.
But you can't microneedle or like PRF? Like, could I PRF a deep line?
You totally can, but it's probably not going to go away. That at that point you say, I love myself. This is okay.
Well, I do love myself, but
Yeah.
chances are I'm gonna have two husbands because one's a lot older than me and does not take care of himself like I do. So you gotta
That
keep
was
youth in here somewhere.
savage. That
He
was
doesn't,
savage.
he doesn't edit the podcast anymore, so you will not hear this, I promise. Unless our editor sends him a clip. Oh man.
Unless
Okay.
somebody outs you.
Yeah, which they will, and I love you guys all for it. Okay, so let's wrap this up with like takeaways. What are other things that we haven't talked about that you really want us to know about perimenopausal skin? And then we will wrap up, but continue with this series. So definitely, if you're interested in loving what we're chatting about, let us know. But yeah, give me a rundown. What else do we need to know?
I would just sort of reiterate some of the things I already said. Pillars of health, and just optimizing your health from within, optimizing your mental health and your, approach to life is really the most important thing. And then again, I love talking about the skin barrier. Skin barrier is easy and super important, making sure that, you're getting in healthy fats through the diet and protein through the diet. You're optimizing your skin barrier through your topical regimen. And yeah, wear sunscreen. I think, you were talking about like trying out all these products and things like that. And I think, as you go through this list of products, you do find ones that you can actually feel make a difference, And for me, that's a sunscreen and that's a retinol and an antioxidant. And those are the things that I know I can tell make a huge difference. And those are the things that I stick to. So, it's great to try out a bunch of products and all those kinds of things, but there's definitely products that you can feel make you feel better and just, prioritizing and focusing on those.
Yeah, those are great. My point that I want to echo is that, although sometimes we feel like in perimenopause and menopause that we're absolutely abandoned and we feel like we don't have support, just know that Rebecca and I and Dr. Sarah are all here for you, and we will help make your skin nice and beautiful. But at the end of the day, aging, wrinkles, all of that, it's totally normal. We just don't love it. but there are things you can do to help reduce those things and make you feel a little bit better if that's something that bothers you, right?
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things for me that I always say to people is if your skin and how you look is bothering you because it's a reflection of how you feel, let's just start there. I
Exactly.
think like we talk all the time as medical practitioners about how like your skin is a reflection of the rest of your body. You know what I mean? It's a mirror to your internal health. But I think sometimes it's a trigger because it feels like a mirror to the internal health, and our
100%.
health feels out of our control. And during perimenopause, like I always say, there's a lot of grieving and a lot of embracing that has to be done, right? We're embracing not having a period anymore because God knows, but we're also grieving that feeling of femininity and the cyclicity. We're grieving, we're in a period of time where we're told as society, our use is different, right? Like there's all these things that go into it, but you can still have a ton of energy. You can still have a body that you are confident in, that you are so feel so lucky to have and to respect. You can still have a great sex drive and great relationships. And I think sometimes we just over index our skin as a representation of all of those other things. Like I am joking about the lines on my forehead, but that is because I have been hell bent on growth and alignment with values this year, which means it's been hard. And so those lines are a reflection of the fact that I have made really challenging decisions and had to do shit I didn't want to do all year. You know what I mean? Include stay up later, include do these other things. But fundamentally, in 6 months from now, those wrinkles are going to be a reflection of how far I've come and how much I can push my body and how much we can help people and how much we can achieve. Right. And so it's all perspective, is moral of the story. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's all perspective. Like people, I have really deep laugh lines, right? Because I bug you guys all fucking day and I laugh a lot in life. And you know what I mean? I don't know that that's ever going to be something that well, I probably will deal with it. Let's be honest. We're all young still, but it's something in this moment I don't have any connotation to because it is a sign of how much I love my life. And so I think it's one of those things to really just get real with yourself about what those things mean. And I'm not one to value aesthetics. I know a lot of people do it for very aesthetic reasons. It's their only reason. I love that for them. That is phenomenal. You guys can come design my life in my house because God knows I am incapable of aesthetic design. But within that, if you are feeling that, if you are feeling like your skin in some way is a reflection of a period you've been through, we can one address it, and two, you can also shift your perspective because so much beauty comes from all the things that show up on our skin as well, right? And the stories that we have and hold can be a sign of how far we've come, and everything's a choice, right? Like everything's a choice. I always joke, I'm like, one day I'll get this eliminated, but that's a sign that I lost 100 pounds. You know what I mean? So like it's all a choice, but know why you're making those choices, I think is one of the big things. And because perimenopause can be the most liberating period for people. And I will again record specific things about perimenopause and the transition and peri chaos and what's happening with your hormones. We'll talk about that. We'll get into that. But the effort phase people go through where they set boundaries and they know what they want and they give her like the just amount of beauty that comes in that period of time is something I don't think we talk about near enough. We talk about you're losing hormones, you're losing your skin, your vagina is going to be screwed. You know what I mean? We talk about all these things, but there's so much beauty and grace that can come, and I think that's what I love. Like as much as I bug Dasha, and I I love how we can combine exosomes or whatever the hell we're talking about and like the most modern technology with the wisdom of the pillars of health and with this psychological component of understanding the battle you're actually taking on. And we have a lot of fun when we do it and we joke around, but like that's truly what I am so proud of at Advanced Women's Health is that like we can slather your body with hormones and inject shit into your face and also call you on the fact that you got to eat in a way that works with your blood work. And you have to take that moment for yourself. And so it is like where science and modern technology and evidence meets like life. And I think perimenopause is a real collision of that right now. And so I think it's important to highlight.
Totally. And I
Well
think
said.
it also echoes that we have something for everyone, right? Whether we have a bunch of different approaches, and, if someone wants to do a little bit of everything, we can do that. Or if someone wants to take a little bit more of one approach to the other, we can always meet someone exactly where they are. And I think that is such a beautiful thing as well. And I loved what you said about, the lines on our face and our face showing what we've been through. And that's why I always talk people out of getting their crow's feet injected, because I think these are so beautiful. They've showed you laugh, they showed you've smiled. And I think taking that away is a little bit of a disservice,
Yeah. No, totally. Okay, very good. Well, thank you so much. It's always so much fun to get on and just jam, and people get a sense of what it's like when we chat every day. We have a lot of fun around here. At least I think we do. And thank you guys for coming on and sharing your expertise. We will make sure links to book with you both are in the show notes. I will tag in social when Dasha absolutely punishes me by needling my face over and over again with PRP.
You're going to love it. I'll numb you before. You won't feel a thing.
Oh my God. Oh, this is another conversation. Steph was talking about the neck, and I was like, I think I would die if someone microneedled my neck. I think I would have a
You'd be
panic attack, but
fine. You'd be fine. We'd numb you.
I'm strong. I'm strong. All right, everyone. We'll have a beautiful day, and I will talk to you all very soon. Thanks so much.
Bye, guys. Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you had as much fun as we did. And if you loved today's episode, share it with a friend and leave us a review. That is how we spread this message, and that is how we are going to revolutionize healthcare in Canada for women. Have a beautiful day and be well.